And time now for our KSAT Q&A with San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg. Mayor, always appreciate your time here on this segment. Lot to talk about as usual. We want to get right into it about SB 4, the new state law that took effect today that now allows state and local law enforcement to arrest somebody suspected of being in the country illegally. Do you have any idea, or have you had conversations yet about how SAPD, how law enforcement here in San Antonio plan to handle this?
Well, good to be with you, Myra and Steve. And we've had some initial conversations. And what I will tell you is that the reason why this is being litigated both by the Department of Justice and cities here in Texas is the fact that it's going to create a tremendous amount of confusion within law enforcement. Enforcement of immigration law is a federal jurisdiction. Local law enforcement, police departments need all the resources and tools and time that they have to deal with local crime. And so this is going to create a lot of confusion and waste unnecessary resources to do what I think is the bidding of partisan legislators to take advantage of this situation with regard to the migration crisis. It's not a solution to the issues facing our border and the migration challenge. What it will do is create confusion and also open the door for racial profiling, putting a target on the backs of so many members of our communities. I was down in South Texas yesterday talking with a number of our mayors. We agree on this. And it's something that is, again, distracting from the debate that needs to be happening, which is the bipartisan solutions that were laid out by a group of good faith senators in the bipartisan border bill that would provide resources and would address the issues at hand.
Now, have you talked to Chief McManus about how, if you're going to enforce this, how it can be enforced?
Well, we've had some initial conversations. Again, there's a lot of confusion, and I would leave those conversations best to our city attorney about how we can deal with this. But it is still in litigation. And again, the stay was lifted by the by the Supreme Court today, a disappointing decision to say the least, but it is still being litigated on its merits. So this is not over in terms of the conversations and the debates about SB 4. Another SB 4, again, that provides no solution and further demagogues the issues of migration here in Texas.
Let's move on to the Migrant Resource Center, because there were questions about its future. Will federal dollars still be provided for the Migrant Resource Center? Will it be able to continue? Does SB 4 play into this at all? I mean, there are some people, what's to stop Texas State, trooper from just going to the Migrant Resource Center and making arrests?
Well, they do have to have probable cause, and I would suggest that that's not probable cause, just having a Migrant Resource Center, because, again, the folks who are here in San Antonio are here legally. They are here legally because the asylum process, which is a legal process in federal statute, has not been changed by congressional leaders, not for 30, 40 years. And that's, again, part of the debate on the bipartisan border bill. But until they have that debate, the law hasn't changed. What I would tell you is, with regard to the Migrant Resource Center, again, this is a operation that we are dealing with the impacts of the lack of immigration reform. We don't control who comes to San Antonio, who comes across the border under those legal statutes. But what we do control is public safety, maintaining order, and treating people with some dignity and compassion, all of which we can do through the Migrant Resource Center that has been federally funded. I will tell you that our federal funding still allows us to continue that operation. The timing at this point really depends on the level of migration that we see. Roughly till about September is when we think our funding will be sustained. But after that, we really don't have any solid solutions other than we've got to keep an operation that maintains public safety, et cetera. So what I would tell you is that there is a little bit of hope, because we just got some information late day that there has been a federal budget deal. We should be getting some language tomorrow to look at all the aspects of it. But what I am told is that the resources necessary to keep operations like this going are provided. So in the bipartisan border legislation, for instance, There was additional $1.4 billion for communities that have to deal with the challenges of migration through operations like our MRC. So in fact, if that is part of this new legislation, then we would be have a little bit of relief in terms of what we will be doing for the foreseeable future. Again, in lieu of congressional action on immigration reform.
So, the number of people coming across the border, that's not tied to whether there's federal funding for that or not. That's not going to stop people from coming. So if federal dollars were to dry up, it's not something that the feds can pay for. The MRC here in San Antonio, what happens then?
I hope we're not in that situation, and hopefully this budget deal makes sure that we're not. But you raise a good point, Myra. And my question is, what is the alternative? Because as you point out, we don't control who comes over the border. We don't control who comes through San Antonio. We're 150 some odd miles from the border. So 600,000 people since January 23 have come through San Antonio. We need a way that we can mitigate the impacts, protect public safety, maintain order, and again, treat people with dignity and compassion. I will tell you the vast majority of folks who come across the border are seeking economic relief. They're fleeing violence. They're looking for a better life. This is not unlike what we saw in pre-World War II when people would come through Ellis Island. So there is some consideration that we have to give that migrants are people who are looking for a better life, coming to contribute. But even all of that aside, the fact that people are coming over is not something that we can control at the local level. It is within the federal jurisdiction. It is something that Congress should take ownership of. What we have to do, though, is deal with the local impacts and deal with it in a way that maintains safety, maintains order, protects public safety, and again, treats people with some basic common dignity.
Quickly, Mayor, before we let you go, I want to talk about downtown construction. We know that there's some construction that's beginning on Alamo. It's going to turn it into a one-way. There have been complaints about what's happening on Broadway. There were complaints earlier about what's happening on St. Mary's, primarily from businesses who think that their considerations aren't really taken into their businesses aren't taken into consideration when this kind of thing happens. Are you sensitive to that? And do you think San Antonio needs to do a better job with some of these projects?
I am sensitive to that. It's something that we've been challenged by for a while, and I'm not going to, excuse it just in terms of supply chains and labor shortages, because a lot of those things have been dealt with. We did have a challenge with respect to construction scheduling, and the fact that we could speed up the process and the way we collaborate with the utilities and the construction crews that are out there. We've done a lot better on that. In fact, the city managers put some processes in place to make sure that when change orders are made, they're done in a much more efficient manner. So projects should move a lot quicker than you were seeing perhaps 2 years ago. But what I will also say, Steve, is that we've spent an inordinate amount of resources to address the impacts of construction, things like wayfinding, making sure that customers have access to businesses that have been impacted by construction. We've given a lot of grants, small dollar grants to businesses to help with some of the impacts financially. What I would like us to do is look at ways that we can incent construction crews to finish faster. Why can't we have crews out there for more than, multiple crews that can work 12 hours or more a day? Not necessarily the same crew, but having crew shifts so that these construction projects can move faster, that we can get through the construction timeline a lot faster. The best way we can mitigate the impacts of construction on a small business is to make sure that those impacts never happen by moving construction along faster.
Yep.
All right, Mayor, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks, y'all.
Take care.